Hi guys, welcome back to your Professional Diploma in Fitness and Weight Loss Module 1, and we are on to Lesson 7, our penultimate lesson, Injury Prevention and Mobility. But of course, before we get started guys, just give me a quick yes or hello if you can hear me. So yes if you can, and hopefully if you can't, you're reading the screen, typing in no, and the support staff will help you. So let's get stuck into what we're going to look at in this lesson after a quick recap of lesson 6. So we looked at in the last lesson controlling body shape long term. So we looked at basic human anatomy, body fat and lifestyle, and meal planning. So combined with lesson 5, hopefully you're really starting to understand what it takes and really what we need to understand long term to control our body shape, because it's not a simple one-time learning. You have to be aware of hormones, be aware of muscle, fat, be aware of your training, nutrition, and the combination of all these things which play a role in your body shape, in your muscle to fat ratio. And that's going to change slightly year by year. So I always say you have a different raw material every year, whether you're fitter or whether you've fallen out of shape. So the same thing is not going to get you the same results because it's a different starting material. So just being aware of that and what we're going to learn in the modules 2, 3, and 4 and how to really control some of those areas, you'll be able to always program no matter what fitness level you're at, no matter what body shape you're at, to get the long-term results that you want. So what are we going to look at in lesson 7? Well, the agenda for today is really, we're going to look at mobility. What is mobility and why is it so important? We're going to look at injury and poor mobility and the links, and then we're going to look at properly warming up and cooling down before, say, longer exercise. I mean, if we're doing short HIIT workouts, we get away with warming up with the workout, but if we're doing longer 40, 50-minute sessions, we definitely need to do a proper warm-up. So let's get stuck into the lesson. What are the risks of poor mobility? In fact, what is mobility? Well, mobility is the ability to move freely and easily, right? So what are the risks if we can't move freely and easily? Well, number one, it's an increased risk of injury. You have an increased risk of injury, all right? The more limited our range of motion, the more we're at risk of pulling something that should have a bigger range of motion. Poor mobility and postural problems, obviously, if we don't have a good range of motion, slow progress and recovery, and poor circulation and back problems. So all these things are going to start to happen to our body if we don't make sure that our range of motion, our mobility, is actually working properly. Okay? So if we look at the causes of poor mobility, and the problem with technology, the problem with society these days is we have a lot of them. Number one, no stretching post-exercise. Now, this isn't probably the biggest one, but a big one for people who train regularly. If you're not stretching post-exercise, what happens is your muscles tighten. And when your muscles tighten during training and you don't stretch them back to their original length after training, what's happening is it compounds over time and you become, I suppose your mobility, your range of motion becomes less and less and leads to longer problems. Overtraining. So now it's not necessarily overtraining in general, but overtraining one muscle group to the other. So muscle imbalances cause from overtraining. So if someone's training their chest all the time, bench pressing, but never training their back, it's going to cause problems down the line in your shoulders, in your back, in your vertebra, and possibly, other little synergistic muscles and areas of joints that we're not really thinking about when we're just bench pressing all day. Age and injury is a big one because as we get older, we definitely lose some of our range of motion, and injury immediately will affect our movement, will immediately affect our range of motion. Then, of course, the big one these days, guys, is sedentary lifestyle and desk jobs. So this causes muscle atrophy in a number of areas, including the back and the back muscles, which cause muscle imbalances. And this is why we're seeing so many people suffering with back problems, lower back problems, bulging discs, prolapse discs, and then really having to almost rehab themselves after a desk job, which seems ridiculous, but someone in a desk job for 10 years is almost rehabbing themselves like someone who suffered from muscle atrophy, who lost a lot of their muscle. So, because it's lack of use, and if we don't use our muscle, guys, our body gets rid of it. Repetitive motion, so either in career or life, so whether you play sport a lot or whether you're a mechanic and you happen to, use a wrench a lot, causing something like tennis elbow, it will definitely cause a muscle imbalance, which is going to have issues within joints and issues within common problems like golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, dodgy knees, hip issues, all that kind of stuff. So we have to be aware of our repetitive motions in life for each individual, I suppose, for ourselves, and how to limit these from becoming a problem later in life. And then guys, stress. Stress is a huge one as well. So stress causes tension to build up in muscles, especially in the upper traps and the neck, which can cause all sorts of unhealthy issues we don't want to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So leading on from that, guys, let's look at some common injuries caused by poor mobility. Because what happens is when we have poor mobility, this leads to common injuries, such as back pain. So this is called from muscular imbalances and tight posterior chain. So your tight posterior chain is your hamstrings, your glutes, your lower back, all up into your upper back. Now, the muscle imbalance essentially is we end up with an atrophy in the upper, mid, lower back area when we have a desk job or sedentary lifestyles. And then just from movement and lack of, say, exercise and flexibility, then we tend to tighten up in our hamstrings, our glutes, our QLs, which go from our glutes into our lower back. And this causes all sorts of back problems and all sorts of issues that arise when we start exercising again after a long time of being sedentary. So what you tend to see is people in their late 20s or 30s, where they might start playing a sport again, like football or say American football or tennis or something they haven't played for a long time. And all of a sudden they start suffering from a lot of injuries. The reason being is now you have all these muscular imbalances and issues that will only really show up once you start actually pushing your body beyond very low limits. The other one is joint pain, caused from tight muscles directly connected to joints or losing a lot of muscle around the joints. So another good example is, every January, 20, 28, 30, 31, 32, people in their late 20s and 30s, or people who have been sedentary for a long time, think, I'm going to get fit, I'll start running. So they decide to just jump out onto the road and start running, not realizing that they have a host of issues which are going to show up when they start running. Because the impact of actually running on one leg to the other, after not doing it for 8 to 10 years, is the equivalent of you carrying around about 300 pounds on your back for your knees. So literally, what you're doing is when you're landing on one leg as you run, there's a huge amount of impact in that joint, in that knee, and in the hip. And if you've lost a lot of muscle, and a lot of balance, a lot of strength in that joint, you're going to start to see issues straight away. And then possibly into the lower back and upper back as well if you've been very sedentary. So there's a huge direct link between sedentary lifestyle and back pain and joint pain. Now, yes, we can get a lot of joint pain from overuse as well, and we more suffer that in, say, professional and amateur athletes have been doing something for 15 or 20 years, but more of this back pain and joint pain is being caused by sedentary lifestyles these days. Hamstring strain, very, very common in sports. So what happens is the hamstring into the glutes gets too tight from just too much running and sprinting and that kind of work, and not enough flexibility training afterwards. So it tightens up, and we see it a lot in football players, rugby players, American football players, because they sprint so much but they don't use their flexibility and mobility afterwards. More in amateurs than professionals, I think we see. Headaches and neck pain cause from too much upper back and shoulder stress, and this can be psychological stress which builds up into physical stress a lot of the time with our sedentary lifestyles. Bulging and prolapsed discs. So we know this is caused from weak back muscles and imbalances, especially bulging. So prolapse, yes, prolapse can be a sudden jerk that explodes a disc between vertebrae. But a bulging disc, we know, and it's so common now, desk jobs. Desk jobs and sedentary lifestyles, because we're losing all our back muscles, especially the erector spinae, and we'll cover more of this in the advanced modules, where it sits on top. The erector spinae goes up from your lower to your upper back, pretty much sitting on top of your spine, your vertebra. And as we lose strength in that, we lose muscle in that, the discs in between your vertebrae can start to protrude and bulge a little bit, hitting your sciatic nerve and the nerves in your spine, causing a lot of issues. So, again, a very common issue caused from lack of movement and poor mobility. Like if you look at it all, a lot of these injuries, guys, a lot of these common injuries these days are lack of movement and poor mobility injuries. And weak knees, ankles, and elbows caused from weak or tight muscles. So weak muscles from not moving, tight muscles from training too much but not doing enough flexibility. It's very, very simple stuff. So if you're suffering from any of these things, you're either not doing any mobility or flexibility with your training, or you're either just not moving in general, and all of these issues are going to arise when you start exercising, and you're probably already feeling some of them. So the good news is there's a very easy solution to it, because we now know the two common reasons. I mean, they're caused from poor mobility, and poor mobility is caused from either not moving or moving too much without flexibility. Yeah, makes sense? So let's, leading on from that, look at signs of sports injuries. So let's say we haven't trained or haven't exercised for a long time, and then we decide to start exercising, or we have been exercising for a long time, but we don't do enough mobility and flexibility, and in the middle of training, something like this happens, a sign of a sports injury. One, how do we identify it? And two, what should we do when it happens? Very simple. So let's look at the signs. Pre and post exercise pain. So pain which appears before you warm up and after you cool down. So it disappears once you start exercising. Now, this doesn't mean you should ignore it just because you're fine during exercise. Because there's obviously a problem in the muscle, but it's disappearing as the muscle warms up and fills full of blood. So it's something that's bothering you outside of exercise, but during exercise it's fine. So it's definitely maybe a tightness or a mobility issue that you're going to have to solve, and it's just disappearing as you warm up because your mobility during exercise does improve, but then our muscles contract and tighten. So again, this can compound over time and become more and more of a problem if we're not doing enough mobility, flexibility. The second one is intra-exercise pain. And intra-exercise pain, guys, and again, talk to your peers, talk about, what you've done when it comes to sports injuries or maybe rehab stuff, or prehab stuff that works very well for your prehabilitation, warm-ups, that's very good. I find foam rolling very good. But intra-exercise pain, guys, this is pain which is constant through exercise. Now, obviously, if we're having a pain constant through exercise, it's a big warning sign to us that there's an issue in that area. Whether it be a muscle or a joint, it's a big warning sign. There is a problem with that area, you have to sort it out. Muscle tightness and discomfort. So what I find is a lot of people who are sedentary, they come in and they start doing weight training and they have huge problems with their range of motion for squatting, for lunging, for doing simple stuff like press-ups and pull-ups, almost having no strength whatsoever and too much strain even when they're in starting positions in certain joints. So we see this in sedentary more than, say, overtrained individual, I think. I mean, definitely, if you're overtraining, not doing no flexibility, you're definitely going to feel maybe hamstring tightness and quad tightness quite commonly, but the rest of it tends to be undertrained. Immediate and sharp pain, discomfort. So this appears immediately in the middle of exercise, sometimes with a loud pop. Now, with this one, guys, immediate sharp pain and discomfort, let's be honest, we're going to have to follow a protocol for this one because we don't want this to happen, so we're not going to continue through this. Swelling, stiffness, and redness. So if it appears swollen before, during, or after exercise, and a clicking sound with pain. So a clicking sound with pain can be a sign of ligament or tendon damage. A clicking sound without pain is perfectly fine. It's probably just a little bit of torn meniscus or joint issue or joint wearing that if it's not causing any pain, it's not going to be an issue. It's not going to be an issue. So it's only if it's with pain, then it's a sign that possibly ligament or tendon damage. All right. Now, if we have any of these things, specifically the immediate sharp pain, discomfort, there's a protocol we need to follow. Okay, specifically with the immediate sharp pain and discomfort. Okay, the other ones, well, intra-exercise pain and immediate sharp pain, they're definitely the ones we're going to follow the RICE protocol. But the rest of them are going to be solved through proper mobility and flexibility. So let's look at what we do. RICE. So when we have an immediate sharp pain during exercise or an intra-exercise pain, something that's bothering us while we exercise, we're going to stop. We're going to stop and rest immediately. We're going to rest the affected area in a pain-free position or as pain-free as possible for a good few minutes. Okay? We're going to ice it straight away as well. So cold will reduce the pain and swelling. We're going to apply the ice pack as soon as possible to the affected area for at least 10 to 20 minutes. We're going to do this 3 times a day. We're going to do this for 48 to 72 hours. Okay? We're going to compress it as well. So we're going to compress and wrap the injured area when we're not icing it. So don't wrap it too tight, but make sure that you give it enough support so you can get around for the next few days, especially if it's an ankle or a knee or a wrist or an elbow. It's going to help you give it a little bit of extra support, especially if you've done a bit of a joint strain. Okay? And then lastly, guys, we're going to elevate it while icing and sitting and really when we don't have to use it. And if it's very bad, we're not going to use it at all for a couple of days and just elevate it and ice it up and see if it reduces. Now, if we do all of this and the pain, the swelling, discomfort doesn't reduce or disappear within 72 hours, we're going to do another re and let's get it evaluated. And go to our doctor, go to our specialist, go to our sports injury clinic and get it evaluated. That's what we're going to do, guys, yeah? So it makes sense. So we've gone through signs of poor mobility, common injuries from poor mobility, signs of sports injury, and then the protocol on how we're actually going to solve that problem. So the next thing leading on from that, guys, we're going to talk about is improving mobility. So if we're seeing any of those signs of sports injury, or really any of those common injuries or common issues connected with poor mobility, then obviously we have to improve our mobility. So how do we do that? Well, a couple of ways. Stretching. Okay, stretching is one of the easiest ways we can solve poor mobility in a joint. So it can be passive, active, or dynamic. So what does that mean? Well, passive is using equipment or an outside force to generate a stretch. So the quad stretch that is in the picture there on the left, where the girl is grabbing her toes, pulling her heel into her bum, she is stretching her quads. So they're the muscles on the thighs. Okay, so she's stretching them out, and that's a passive stretch. It's using equipment or an outside force to generate a stretch. And we can do assisted passive stretching when someone else stretches us. All right? The second type of stretching is active. So it's generating a stretch yourself by contracting the opposing muscle you want to stretch. Now, to put it in very simple terms, it's contracting one muscle so the other stretches. Now, to give you an example, the quad stretch on the left there, all we have to do to make that active is take our hands away, but still keep our heel as tight into the bum as we can by activating our hamstrings, which still stretches our quads. Okay? It's not massively used. It's used a lot in rehab to give strength back into one muscle while stretching the other, and just to see how strong the joints and the muscles can activate on their own. But in general, sports mobility and flexibility, we wouldn't use it a huge amount. And then there's dynamic stretching. So that's using momentum to generate a stretch. So this is mainly used to help mobilize the joints and muscles in specific warm-up protocols. So it's like high kicks, it's like knee circles, hip circles, arm circles, and so on. So it's using momentum to generate a stretch and range of motion in a joint or a specific muscle. Yeah, makes sense? So with our stretching, we're mainly going to be using passive and active stretching, and we'll look at where and when we're going to use them in our warm-up and our cool-down protocol a little later on in this lesson. The next thing we're going to look at, guys, is foam rolling, okay? So foam rolling is a fantastic way of doing essentially self-massage, and that's what it is. It's what's known as myofascial release, so it's self-massage, and it helps release knots and tightness in specific muscles that we can't release with stretching. Okay, so myofascial release, what happens is your muscle fibers, like thousands and thousands of hairs, pulled tight together. So what happens is sometimes knots appear in the muscle, and foam rolling helps kind of roll these out with specific trigger points. That's what they call trigger points. It can be performed on large and small muscle groups depending on the foam roller. So this one is very common for kind of quads, hamstrings, the RT band, the glutes, whereas we get smaller kind of mobility kind of balls and scotch balls that will do smaller muscle groups in the upper back and shoulder area and things like that. It helps return the muscle back to its original length. So like stretching, it does help increase that range of motion in the muscle again, which may be connected to a joint, improving the range of motion in the joint as well. So it also aids quicker repair by getting more blood into the muscle. And then the trigger points are the knots that we're looking for. So we're able to target specific areas of muscles which we need to release. Now again, we can't do that with stretching. So if we start stretching something and we feel one particular pain in a part of a muscle, we can't release that out with a stretch. Now we have to go to a foam roller, find that trigger point, and try and roll it out. Okay? And again, we'll cover this in a lot more detail in modules 2, 3, and 4 when it comes to mobility and flexibility. All right? And then, guys, there's things like yoga and Pilates, fantastic as well. So when it comes to yoga and Pilates, I think it's something we all should do at least once a week to simply decompress the joints. So we decompress all the joints when we do something like yoga or Pilates, and we help get the range of motion in the muscles, in the joints, in our skeletal structure that we're not getting on a daily basis that we should be getting, especially with the sedentary lifestyle and sedentary society we live in these days. No matter how active you are, it's still very hard not to be sedentary. I always give the example as, you know, I'm a personal trainer who now does a desk job 40 hours a week, you know. Previously on the gym, I was on the floor, you know, 50, 60 hours a week, but now that I teach online, literally sitting at a desk, so I had to adjust and make sure that in here I get up every 45 minutes and I do yoga pilates once a week, or I make sure to do a little bit of time, dedicate to stretching each day. So it also helps our alignment and balance, which may be affected in a negative way from one form of training. So say if we're always heavy squatting, but we're not doing what's known as unilateral exercises, whereas we do single leg or Bulgarian split squat or something like that, well then what's going to happen is that our stronger joints, our stronger muscles are going to overcompensate, and it's going to cause an imbalance. So with yoga pilates, it very much concentrates on mobility, flexibility, and unilateral exercises. Then we get that alignment back in our areas that have maybe overcompensated. The other thing we get is a really good, what's known as central nervous system connection or mind-muscle connection. So to get your brain trained to contracting your muscle properly and really controlling the range of motion of your body, a lot of it is about getting your brain to be able to contract the necessary muscles to do it. And when you first start training, your mind-muscle connection, your central nervous system is very weak at doing that. So we actually train that, the central nervous system connection to the muscles, every time we train. And especially when we do something like strength training or yoga or pilates, because we're training the muscle to contract very specifically for a specific exercise. And then guys, yoga and pilates very much helps relieve stress, because the mix of breathing, strength, mobility, concentration all helps stress relief in the joints, muscles, and helps boost things like serotonin and dopamine, and gets us away from our busy life. You know, sometimes life's a bit too busy these days, I think, and there's too much stress building up, and we're going to talk a huge amount about stress and stress management in Lesson 8. But there's so much physical, psychological, environment stress around us that it's so important to have some form that we can relieve the stress physically and mentally. And yoga and pilates are fantastic ways of doing that. And then lastly, guys, the last way we can really help our mobility and our flexibility is something like a specific sports massage. So for anyone training with, say, amateur level or professional level teams, you will know that, you know, the sports massage probably helped you or reduced your delayed onset muscle soreness, your DOMS. It's also professional relief. So professional is handling the massage. So you're guaranteed to get the exact trigger point that's causing the tightness in the joint or the pain. Whereas if we're doing it ourselves, we might have 3 or 4 trigger points that we're not aware which one is causing the first problem. So very much a professional knowing exactly what to relieve in the right order can really help us when it comes to improved mobility and flexibility. Again, we get that central nervous system release, because myofascial release does come with psychological benefits of relaxing and muscle tension, and then we get that increased mobility straight away because the professional is doing the exact release that we need for that problem. So guys, there's some of the ways we can really improve our mobility and flexibility. And if we look at the benefits of improving our mobility to the point where it's good or above average, so for one, it's going to improve our posture. So we're going to stand up taller, we're going to have less issues with kind of hunchback, we're going to increase the blood flow to our muscles, which in turn will help us recover quicker. We're going to get a better joint mobility, so it's going to improve the range of motion in our joints, in our muscles. It's going to help reduce injury, because it reduces the risks of injury from exercise. Because really, to reduce injuries, we want to reduce the risks. And the risks we went through in that first section, the common injuries caused by poor mobility and the signs of sports injuries. So if we can reduce all of those things, we're going to reduce the risk of injury and reduce injury as a whole. It's also going to help reduce physical and mental stress. Guys, mobility and flexibility and poor mobility is actually a big cause of stress buildup. And not just physical, but also psychological. So if we can release it physically, we're going to get a physical and a psychological release. And then lastly, guys, for pure performance, you know, and not just for a specific sport, but for your body to improve its performance on a daily basis. We talked about this. Remember, what type of body do you want? We do that comparison with the car. Do we want the junker of a car? Do we want the pretty good, well-performing car? Reliable car? Or do we want the sports performance car? So same with the body. Do we want the junker of a body, the well-performing good body, or the sports performing body? It's our choice. Just how good do we need to get our strength, our fitness, our mobility? It's whatever level we get it at, we take it that next step to get to that next level. Yeah, makes sense, guys? So we've covered a little bit about the causes of poor mobility and injuries connected to that. We've now covered improving mobility and the benefits of good mobility. What's next? Next is preventing injury. Okay? And a big part of preventing injury, guys, is how can we actually fix those imbalances? How can we fix those muscle imbalances when it comes to 10 years of being sedentary or overtraining in a specific sport, or maybe our career has a repetitive strain injury that's causing us a problem? So how do we actually fix those muscle imbalances? Well, So how do we actually fix those imbalances? Well, there's 4 stages of what's known as prehab or prehabilitation. Okay? So one is to fix your muscular imbalances, you have to fix them through planned strength training. Because you have a muscular imbalance because one is strong compared to the other. And we're going to cover this huge amount in the advanced modules because we're going to look at which muscles oppose each other. Your chest and your back, your shoulders and your lats, your quads and your hamstrings, posterior, anterior, and so on. Okay? But we have to fix the imbalance. So we have to fix the weak muscle to the strong muscle. So we're going to have stronger muscles, we're going to have weaker muscles. We have to fix the weaker muscles in comparative to the stronger muscles because they all work together. Your biceps, your triceps, they work together. Your chest, your back, they work together. Your shoulders, your lats, they work together. Your quads, your hamstrings, they work together. So if you have one weaker than the other, it's going to cause a problem with performing exercises or performing movement. All right? The next step is we have to fix any mobility issues or muscle tightness. Okay, so the first step is planned training. What do we actually need to fix in the first place? The second step is with those stronger muscle groups, do we have issues in the muscles and joints? So are they stronger just because we use them more and we still have an issue with the range of motion? So planned strength training along with mobility and flexibility training. The third thing is we have to stop ignoring pain and discomfort when it appears. So many people say things like, no pain, no gain in training, or there's no such thing as a bad workout. Yes, there is. First of all, it's not no pain, no gain, it's gain, no strain. Okay, that's the new one. We've been saying that for about 10 years in the fitness industry. Gain, no strain. We don't want to be actually injuring ourselves. The second thing is there is such thing as a bad workout. A workout that you shouldn't have done because you're overtrained, you're under-recovered, or maybe you're just pushing yourself to a point where your body shouldn't be going. Because there is a such thing, the dark place. We talk about it. Okay? And lastly, guys, we have to warm up and cool down properly. We have to warm up and cool down properly. Now, those first 3 guys, when it comes to fixing your muscular imbalances, fixing mobility issues, and not ignoring pain when it appears, that's another 4 weeks of a course. So we can't cover a lot of that today, but what we are going to cover is the warming up and cooling down properly before and after exercise, especially longer sessions. You know, I'm not talking about a quick 15, 20-minute cardio session or maybe HIIT session that we can warm up with the first couple of rounds. But if we're actually going in and doing 45 minutes, 50 minutes of planned strength and planned cardiovascular exercise or team sports, we need to warm up and cool down properly. So we're going to look at that now. So there's 4 stages of warming up, guys. There's 4 stages of warming up. They are warm up and loosen up. And how do we do that? We do low intense movements. Things like jogging, sidestepping, walking lunges, bodyweight squats. We use a change of direction. And we spend a couple of minutes doing this. You know, lunge 50 yards, squat 10 squats, jog in a diagonal line, back to a straight line, back to a diagonal line, and do the same 2 or 3 times for 2 or 3 minutes. That type of thing. Okay? The second thing we're going to do is mobilize the joints. Okay, so we do this by rotational movements like hip circles, knee circles, lunges with rotation, high kicks, dynamic stretching. That's what that is. Mobilizing the joints are dynamic stretches, using momentum to stretch the muscle and joint. We said we're going to talk about that. Dynamic stretches, all right? The third thing we do is raise the heart rate a little bit before we get into our training. So we're going to do high knees, jumping jacks, toe touches. We might do 5 to 10 meter sprints. We might do more dynamic stretches. Could do kicks, punches. We can get high kicks going. We can get a little faster rotation movements, but obviously not overstraining. You know, if you're doing team sports, warm-up games are great fun. We can do dodgeball, we can do tag, we can do a load of different things. And then the fourth stage is we're going to activate and warm up the specific muscle groups we're using. So if we're going to do something like sprinting, it's speed work. So we might do the planned speed work at a lower intensity for 2 or 3 sets. If we're going to do a load of squatting or we're going to do a load of leg work, we might do some bodyweight squats, and then we load up 2 or 3 sets through maybe some of the smaller percentages of what we can actually lift, and then we'll go with our working weight. We'll go with our 30 kilos or 40 kilos. That might be 70 or 80% of our max. Yeah? So that's what we're looking to do in the 4 stages of warm-up. Now there's a couple of ways we can use the 4 stages of warming up. So if we're doing team sports and doing a planned team sports session, so let's say we're training a sports team, or just we're trying to improve our own sports team performance in general in whatever sport we're playing, whether it be soccer, rugby, or anything like that. Well, then we're going to do it very specifically. Warm-up is going to maybe 3 minutes. We'll do some foam rolling, jogging, bounding side to side, mobilize the joints. So we're going to do maybe 4 minutes of ankle and knee circles, hip circles, arm swings, walking lunges with a twist. Then we might spend 3 minutes specifically doing jumping jacks or burpees or 5 to 10 meter sprints or games like dodgeball and tag. And then the specific muscle group work will be 2 to 3 sets. That's where we're maybe doing team sports, and we're going to do like an hour and a half session. If we're doing our own session just in the gym, it is a good idea to do a mini version of this. So we might do 1 minute to 2 minutes on a rower or on a cross trainer. Then we might do a bit of mobilizing the joints. So we will do all of that stuff maybe for 1 or 2 minutes. Then to raise the heart rate, we might jump back onto something like the rower for 200 meters and then 10 burpees and do that for 2 or 3 rounds. And then we'll move into our weights and go specifically to the first exercise and practice 2 to 3 sets at a lighter set of the planned work, and do that pretty much for every exercise. So for team sports, we're going to spend a lot more time in it. Team sports, we're going to spend 15, 20 minutes warming up. If it's ourselves, we might spend 6 to 8 minutes. So you just break it down in half for yourself. Yeah? And again, guys, we're going to cover this a huge amount and the uses of this in a lot more detail in the advanced modules. But for the moment, that's the theory behind it. Next up, and equally as important, is the 4 stages of cooling down. And this is what a lot of people don't do. So they actually do the warm-up, and they do the session, but then they don't do the 4 stages of cooling down. Stage 1 is allowing your heart rate to slow. So you're not going to stop immediately. You're going to jog or walk or perform something like a bike or a row or a cross trainer at a slow pace, and allow your breathing and heart rate to come back down to normal levels or close to normal levels. Once we've done that, we're going to get our post-exercise mobility in. So we're going to do our passive static stretching. Okay, we're foam rolling or a massage. Now we talked about what that was in the second section of this lesson. Passive static stretching, foam rolling, massage. Might do all 3. Well, massage, if you're lucky to have a massage therapist on board. Then we're going to rehydrate, guys. We've got to replace a lot of the water we lost. If we lost a lot of water in an intense session, we've got to replace that over the next hour or so. And then, guys, we've got to refuel. Very, very important. Maybe a post-workout shake if it was an intense weight training session, and then a good meal within about 90 minutes of the session to really optimize recovery, especially if you're doing any team sports. If you're not doing team sports, not a big deal, but if you're really trying to optimize your performance, then I'd refuel in that way. And again, we cover this in our sports nutrition module and the advanced modules, you know, what way we're going to refuel depending on the athlete, depending on whether you're just looking to shape up and get in better shape, or whether you're looking to optimize your performance and we need very specific nutrient timing. Make sense, guys? So the benefits there of warming up and cooling down, very simply, we mobilize our joints and we warm up the body. Okay? That gets the body ready for exercise. We have to get the body ready for exercise. You can't just go from, 30%. You can't just go from nothing to 100% and expect your body to be able to take it, especially if you don't train that often. Like, you'll actually get away with warming up the fitter you are, Increased mobility of specific muscles being worked, very, very important. Speed, it helps speed up our recovery, because if we're warming up properly and we're going through a session, we're most likely cooling down properly. Helps prevent injury during and after exercise, because again, we're making sure that our muscles or joints have that full range of motion that they should have, and it improves the body's ability to perform physical activities. So in general, if we want to perform better, remember the car, junker of a car, good performing car, sports performing car. What kind of body do you want? Junker of a body, well performing body, sports performing body. It's up to you. But the more we improve the body's ability to perform physical activities, the better we're going to look, the better we're going to work, and the longer we're going to work for. Make sense? And guys, the last thing I want to cover is rest and recovery. Because so many trainers out there are spouting bad advice, like there's no such thing as a bad workout, go hell for leather, puke, faint or die, all this kind of stuff, which is not a good representation of what you should be doing. Because during a rest period, your body repairs your muscles, your central nervous system, and allows your immune system to rest and reset. And if you don't allow your immune system to rest and reset and repair your muscles, one, it's going to slow your results. Two, you're going to feel terrible. And three, you're never going to get the long-term results you want because you're going to give up before you actually get them. So slow recovery is a huge symptom of not having a good recovery plan or having a non-existent recovery plan. And if you have slow recovery and you're training with a personal trainer or training with a trainer for a long time, get rid of them because they haven't taught you the right things. Okay? Slow recovery is simply a system of a bad or non-existent recovery plan. And one of the most important things to get results long-term is a good recovery plan along with our training and nutrition. It's training, nutrition, and recovery. All three are very, very important. Okay? So, let's look at the causes of slow recovery. Bad nutrition, undereating, dehydration, lack of quality sleep, poor mobility, and stress. Now, bad nutrition. If you're training but you haven't sorted out your nutrition, it's a big problem. If you're undereating, if you're eating too few calories, you're never going to get the results you want. We talked about that slight calorie deficit for fat loss, calorie maintenance, and just under calorie maintenance for really building muscle, and you're still going to get a bit of fat loss, and a calorie surplus will go a lot more into in the advanced modules if you want to build a lot of muscle. Okay? If you're not drinking enough water, the last person, I've had some clients say to me in the past, I don't like water. How can you not like water? It doesn't taste like anything. It has no taste. Okay? Your body needs water. And it needs 2 to 3 liters per day. And it needs more than that if you're exercising. Lack of quality sleep, poor mobility and stress. Sorry guys, lack of quality sleep, poor mobility and stress are 3 big ones as well. And this is kind of all connected with our busy lives. We try and fit everything in and we actually don't think about it. But we need to be sleeping 6 to 8 hours a day, guys. We need to make sure mobility is good. And we've just gone through an entire lesson about our mobility and how important it is. And we have to make sure we're reducing stressors. And we'll talk about that in the next lesson. Okay, we'll talk about that in lesson 8. But signs of slow recovery, signs of it is going to be things like DOMS. Okay, so if you're, now when you first start exercising in the first, say, month or 2, yeah, you'll get delayed onset muscle soreness and it will last 3 and 4 days at a time. But once you've been training for 2 or 3 months, if you're still getting delayed onset muscle soreness past the 3rd day, then it's one of the things on the left. Bad nutrition or undereating or lack of quality sleep. Because you should be recovering within 2 days once your muscles have gotten used to the training you're doing. You know, you always have to challenge yourself, but you shouldn't be suffering from, you know, DOMS in a muscle group, delayed onset muscle soreness, for more than about 48 hours. If you're getting sore throat, joint pain, muscle pain, or getting sick all the time, these are other big ones. Okay? If you're constantly feeling like you're run down, you keep getting sore throats after workouts, or your joints and your muscles are pain, or you keep getting sick, then again, you have no recovery plan. So you're taxing your immune system too much, and your immune system is finding it hard to repair your muscle, repair your body, and fight viruses all at the same time. And then lastly, guys, this is going to cause a massive lack of loss of motivation. You're just going to give up. And when you give up, you're just not going to get the results you want. So if we're going to get the results that we want long term, we have to accept and have to understand that our recovery plan is as important as our training plan. And our recovery plan is as important as our nutrition plan. And in fact, our recovery plan actually combines our training plan with our nutrition plan along with rest and recovery. So it combines everything. So your recovery plan actually is combining your rest, your training, and your nutrition. So that's actually more important because that's understanding it all together. We get it, yeah? So how do we plan our recovery properly? Well, very simple. Planning recovery is a few steps. With rest days, my preference is train 2 days in a row and then follow that with 1 rest day. But get at least 2 rest days in a week. Full rest days. You know, you can walk around, you can be active, but don't be training on those days. Okay? Active recovery. Now, this is what I mean by being active. You can do a light swim, a cycle. If you happen to row, you can do rowing, or something relaxing like mobility, like yoga, Pilates, or a mobility hour to yourself. Yeah? Now that is not exercise, that is mobility and recovery. So we're not training on it, but we can definitely do some active recovery. Nutrition. Guys, fuel your body. Don't deprive it. We've talked about this. Food is your fuel. If you can just get that into your head, food is your fuel. Think of yourself like a car. You give car good quality petrol, you give yourself good quality fuel. Okay? Food is your fuel. It is vital for muscle repair. It is vital for energy. It is vital to run you through the day. And if we don't give ourselves the proper quality fuel, you're not going to recover. And a big sign of lack of nutrition or undernutrition is not recovering within that 48-hour period for delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS. Okay? Sleep, guys, 7 to 8 hours, but 6.5 minimum. Any less and your hormones and brain function will reduce. And like to crazy levels. You know, your leptin drops by, I think it's 33 or 34%. So really your metabolism is only running at about 60%. Your serotonin and dopamine can drop by 20 to 30%. Your cortisol will rise by 30%. So in general, if you're getting less than about 6.5 hours sleep, you are literally running on 60%. Now, do you want to run on 100% or 60% every day? It's your choice. But don't tell me you don't have time to sleep, all right? Except for new mothers, new parents. Trust me, for about 10 months you probably won't, but after that, it's fine. And then, guys, hydration. 3 liters of water per day minimum. You will notice this within 7 days that your energy levels, your sleep, your skin, your concentration, your recovery all improve. If you're exercising a lot, you may need 4 a day. Yeah, guys? You may need 4 a day. So, guys, recovery, so important. And the rewards of our recovery and our mobility is this. Reduce risk of injury. Improve mobility and reduce stress. Optimal recovery and progression. And balanced posture and good circulation. So again, guys, every time we go through the risks at the start of the lesson and the rewards, you know, look at the rewards we get, look at the risks. And what we're actually doing as a society is on a daily basis putting ourselves at risk and actually almost wiping all our rewards off the table for ourselves. So we need to get back to really concentrating on the rewards of each of these areas when it comes to our training, our nutrition, our recovery, and stress reduction to improve the quality of our life and to improve our body's ability to actually work. Again, what type of car do you want? Junker, well-performing, sports-performing. What type of body? Junker, well-performing, sports-performing. I'll keep saying it. Keep saying it through all the modules. So guys, I'm going to wrap up the lesson there, but what I want to talk about now is our pathway into Module 2. And really, whether you're here for personal reasons or professional reasons, why we need to move on after Module 1. And the simple fact is, Module 1 is an introduction module, okay? We've covered the basics, the fundamentals, a lot of the theory about why we need to exercise, have good recovery, properly plan our meals, and so on. But we haven't gone through exactly how to practically implement that, and that's what we do on Module 2. We talk about exercise programming, progression in your training, overcoming plateaus, proper meal planning, and really how to start implementing this on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, so it's enjoyable, it's part of your life, and you're seeing the results you want. Now, Module 2 very much is about mastering your body and understanding how to properly program exercise, recovery, and nutrition for long-term results. So it's 4 weeks long, just like the introduction module. It's 2 lessons per week, just like the introduction module. However, we will have a theory and a practical lesson, which is more about implementing all of the theory we've learned on a daily basis into our lives, so we guarantee results. We have our weekly assignments as usual, our Module 2 assignment, personalized support from myself and the team as usual, and a lot more personalized support. If you've bought a course individually, you're not on the subscription membership, you can actually email myself and the nutrition team and get a lot more individual one-to-one access to your course tutors and your educators. And it starts next week, guys. It starts next week at the same time slots as Module 1. Now, to give you a detailed look about what we're going to cover over the 4 weeks. In week 1, it's all about goal setting and tracking results. So you're going to learn how to set goals for your own specific desired results. Now, whether that be fitness, whether it be weight loss, whether it be training for sport, whether it be improve your performance, or whether it just be feel better in general, you're going to learn how to set weekly and monthly goals to effectively track your results, okay? We're also going to understand how to progress your training so you can really master total control of your body shape, your health, and your fitness, so you no longer come across training plateaus or boredom in training, or that barrier, that wall we all seem to hit when we don't know enough about our own body. When we start off training, we feel great for 3 or 4 weeks, and then we just lose that initial motivation. And some of that's to do with really just not being new anymore, but a lot of it's to do with people not understanding how to progress their training and progress their nutrition as they get fitter, stronger, and better at what they're doing. In week 2, we're going to talk about how important making your health your number one priority is. So we're going to look at planning fitness into our daily lives, just like we plan our work, our family, our friends. I mean, why would we get results from it if it's not part of our daily life? Okay, so we're going to look how to plan that properly and enjoy it on a daily basis. And we're going to really go in depth and understand the benefits to daily exercise, to our physical and mental health, to performing better on work, to sleeping better, to all the things and all the benefits we're going to get from exercise, not just the physical benefits. We're also going to understand how to prioritize a better work-life balance, because let's be honest, guys, we all work too much and we all don't have enough balance when it comes to our social lives, our own health and fitness, and so on. And we're going to learn how to properly take care of our overall physical and mental health, because a lot of people tend to push their own health and fitness behind their work, behind their family, behind all of these commitments. But when you do that, you're making sure that really your family, your friends, and your work are getting the worst version of you. And they get the worst version of you because you're simply not prioritizing your own health and fitness, which means you're not prioritizing you feeling the best you can possibly feel for everything else you do in life. Okay? In week 3, we're going to look at the growth mindset and motivation in general. So we're going to understand the power, and really not just the power, but the focus a growth mindset can give us. We're going to learn how to program exercise effectively. We're going to discover why your enjoyment should be first, and it should be the first thing you think about in your training, in your exercise, and everything else should be after that. And then we're going to understand how to master judging correct intensity when it comes to our own exercise, so we always maximize our enjoyment and also maximize our results. Now, the other thing we're going to learn from this week, from the growth mindset week, is how we can apply that growth mindset, that new mindset, into every other part of our life, and really apply, aim to feel 1% better every day and enjoy the process to every part of our life, not just our physical fitness. Okay? And then in week 4, guys, we're going to talk about recovery, sleep, and long-term progression over training. So we're going to learn how to plan our recovery around our training and understand how important our mobility, our flexibility, our nutrition is along with our training. It's not just about exercising and getting your meal plan right. It's about getting everything right in a balance for your own physical fitness. We're also going to learn the difference between good and bad stresses for the body and how to manage these properly within a week, a month, a year, and so on. And we're going to optimize our recovery with a specific sleep plan, and really understanding how important sleep is to functioning as a human being every day. Because I think a lot of things like stress and sleep are being overlooked these days, and they're a huge cause of why people are struggling with their physical and mental health these days. So guys, that is what we're going to cover in Module 2. Another huge amount of subjects that we'll practically implement into our lives and truly live 1% better every day and enjoy the process in that module. Now remember, guys, the 4 modules, for anyone doing this for professional reasons, again, you have to complete the 4 modules. Like, either way, I said personal or professional. I don't see why you wouldn't do all 4 modules. I never designed this to be a 4-week course or an 8-week course. It's a 4-module, 16-week course. So if you're doing it for personal reasons, it's 16 weeks of learning how to enjoy fitness, enjoy your nutrition, manage stress, and make it part of your daily life. And if you're doing it for professional reasons, you have to do the 4 modules to get the EQF Level 5 Professional Diploma. It will look silly if you go for a job interview in any health club or weight loss consultant or gym, and they go to you, what's your qualification? And you say, well, I have half of an EQF Level 5. I mean, we just don't do that, you know. You need all 4 modules for that EQF Level 5 Professional Diploma, and it is a globally recognized qualification worldwide. There is the equivalencies worldwide. QCF Level 5 in the UK, Associate's Degree in the USA, NQF Level 5 in South Africa, and all the others down there. If you're not sure what it is in your country, contact your local body and ask them what an EQF Level 5 equivalent is in your country, and they will tell you. And guys, you also have access to all other courses. So if you are planning on moving on and making this a career, we have marketing, social media marketing, leadership and management, trading, and I teach a few other courses. I have a good background in business and management and investing as well. So if you like my teaching skills, well, then you can join me on either cryptocurrency or trading or leadership and management as well, where you can upgrade your life skills and really go along with that 1% better every day and enjoy the process. And I live it, guys. That's why I've been in all these industries, and I've gained experience and qualifications in all these industries, because I believe in 1% better every day and enjoy the process, not just in your fitness, but for your life, so you can enjoy it as a whole. And that's what this 16 weeks is about. I got the initial focus from fitness, and I've been able to transfer those 16 weeks that I've learned over 10 years into a number of different areas and industries. And guys, of course, you get access to all your courses, all your toolkits, all your assignments, all your EQF Level 5 qualifications, premium support from myself, and uninterrupted learning. You can log in anytime, watch a lesson, catch a recording, do an assignment, check out your bonus content, and then email me if you do have any questions. So if you're already a subscription member, guys, just add your module 2 today. If you're not a subscription member and you purchase this course as an individual course, when it comes to module 1, then you'll need to upgrade to one of the membership options on subscription. Simply go to your members area. You have your 12-month, your 6-month, your 3-month, and your 1-month option. The 12-month and the 6-month options are the most popular, especially if you're planning to do the other courses. So a lot of people tend to do fitness and weight loss, sports nutrition, social media marketing, if they're entering the industry, or even if they just want to improve their own life skills. So it makes more sense to do the 12-month and the 6-month membership, because it's cheaper, it gives you a little more exclusive content, a little better support, and you also get a free hard copy with that 12-month one. If you need to go more with the budget options, that's no problem. Go to 3 months and the 1 month and complete your EQF Level 5 qualification for fitness and weight loss, and you can make your decision from then onwards. But it really is up to you to decide which plan suits you best. The 12 and the 6 months give you the biggest discount, but they're upfront payments. The 3 month and the 1 month were a little less if you need a budget option. So guys, I'm going to leave you with that. If you do have any questions, please feel free to email me, nutrition.support@shawacademy.com, or contact your personal course tutor so you can have a chat to them about your own pathway. If you need any specific questions answered by myself and your subscription member, you can of course email myself. But if you're not, then email your course tutor, and maybe I can help them answer your questions as well. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you're looking forward to your last lesson. It's a doozy. It's a good one. It's my favorite lesson. I'm at my best motivation in lesson 8. So if you've enjoyed all of these lessons, hopefully you will enjoy lesson 8. And remember, guys, as I always say, aim to feel 1% better every day and enjoy the process.